Hare Krishna. So first of all, thank you for coming and for giving me an opportunity to share a few thoughts and realizations with you tonight. Thank you. Om Agyantamandasya Yananjalasharakaya Chakshunmalitam Dvina Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manupastam Sthavitam Yadam Swayam Upakaramayam Vadati Svavadantikam Amang Vishnavadaka Shabasa Uttani Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Prachayane Nivishesha Shanivari Pasatari Shatari Vanshakapa Juvasa Kripa Sanvevata Haditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Bhaktamanda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare. Okay, so the topic I would like to present today is the power of consciousness. What consciousness is, where it comes from, how our consciousness affects others, how we are affected by other people's consciousness. Because we use this term consciousness quite frequently. After all, we are the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But very often, we don't even know exactly what this consciousness actually is. Also, Prabhupada was saying before becoming Krishna conscious, we have to become first conscious. So tonight, we want to try and become conscious of consciousness, what consciousness is. So in Bhagavad Gita, we have a nice analogy. It says there that just like the sun, with the sunshine is illuminating the whole universe, in the same way, consciousness comes from the soul and illuminates the whole body. So in other words, consciousness is the life force. As soon as there is life, as soon as there's growth, it means there's life, it means there's a soul present, it means there is consciousness. So consciousness is that powerful energy coming from the soul, and it floods the whole body and keeps every cell alive in the body. And it's, of course, not only there in a human body, but in any species of life. So animals, of course, they also have consciousness. Cats, dogs, birds. We have the bird cage there. You know, there is consciousness there. Even in plants, trees, there is consciousness. So, and very originally, consciousness is actually pure, like the soul originally is pure because it's a part of the Supreme Soul, Krishna. So by nature, the soul and the consciousness is pure, but since the soul took birth here in the material world, it is covered, it is affected by the three modes of material nature. and therefore it is not so pure at this point. So the same thing is there with the consciousness also. We can imagine it's a spectrum there. On one side is this divine, pure, godly consciousness. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have consciousness, affected by lust, by greed, by envy, false ego, all these kind of things. So, and this process of bhakti is actually meant to bring that presently not so pure consciousness back to its original and divine state. That's what we are trying to do here, actually. So it's quite some process. So, and this consciousness is not only flooding the body, but it is also emanating from every pore of the skin, actually. That's why very saintly personalities, they actually have an effulgence. They have an aura. Even in Christianity, today is Easter, so even in Christianity, we have this tradition, we paint saintly personalities with a halo, right? Yes. So we also do that. We have, here, there we go. Nice picture. I was just wondering, do we have any pictures where we see it? Yeah, here, very, very bright, So this is not just some artistic tool or something, but it is factual. There is some effulgence coming from this person, mainly from the head, actually. And that is when the person has very pure, divine, godly consciousness. Then the person is shining. There is a nice little story when our Srila Prabhupada, he was in this world, and he was walking through a city somewhere in America on the way to the Rath Yatra parade. I'm sure you all know what Rath Yatra is. You have a Rath Yatra here also. Yeah. So, and he was surrounded by a group of his disciples, and they overheard a conversation between two policemen. And one was saying to the other, "Look at this man, he is glowing." And they had no idea who Srila Prabhupada was, no idea. But they could see that Prabhupada was very effulgent. Yeah. And the similar thing is there, of course, also when the consciousness is not so pure and divine, but when it is full of envy and lust and false ego. So then if we are a little perceptive, we can also feel that kind of energy coming from a person, right? We may have had that experience when we had some tension, some argument with a person in our life, and we are with that person in a maybe relatively small room, even if neither of them say anything. But if we are a little perceptive, we can feel, oh, this person is upset with me, this person is angry, right? Yeah, you can feel it in the air, it's all, tension there. So this is from that consciousness which emanates from a person. Also, whatever we do, every movement is, of course, also executed through consciousness, right? Every step we go, when we laugh, speak, dance, walk, whatever we may be doing. It is executed through consciousness. That's why Srila Prabhupada, whatever he was doing, was so amazingly attractive. Often we hear Prabhupada disciples sharing that. I never met Prabhupada in person, but I read so many books about his pastimes and his life that I almost feel I'm traveled with Prabhupada all around the world, because I read so many of them. But very often we hear Prabhupada disciples saying that everything Prabhupada did, when he walked, when he danced, when he smiled, laughed, how he was flicking a piece of prasadam in his mouth, everything was just so amazingly attractive and beautiful because it was executed with this divine, sublime consciousness. Whereas a person who is driven by false ego and envy, wanting to bring attention to himself or herself. So if that person walks and laughs and smiles and dances, not so attractive, because his or her movements are executed with a different consciousness. Yes. Also, another interesting thing is that everything we create with our hands, that consciousness enters the object we create. Yeah. I'm sure we may know that we say the consciousness of the cook enters the food, right? You have heard that? Yes. Yeah. So this is indeed like that. Because, consciousness comes out through our fingertips. So if we cook there, then our consciousness, in a subtle way, that energy goes into the food and lingers there in the food. So by eating that food, we actually get affected by that consciousness. That's why we say our spiritual food, the prasadam, this is like, it is very uplifting to the consciousness to eat this. So we are not only vegetarians, but we are prasadarians. Yes. So that's why we like to distribute this food we cook, because we try our very best that our cooks are in good consciousness, that they follow our principles and they do chanting of the holy name regularly and all these things. And then we are offering it with mantras on the altar. So even we get there in a minute that consciousness travels on sound vibration. So these mantras we chant, it's all pretty subtle but factual. That energy also enters the food. So, and then by eating that, it uplifts our consciousness. And the same way, on the other end of the spectrum, if somebody cooks something in anger and some lustful mood and full of anxieties and fear and whatnot, that consciousness also enters what he or she cooks. And then by eating that food, we do get affected. Maybe not so much if we just do it once, exceptionally, but if we do it regularly, if we eat such food cooked by a person and not such spiritual, sublime consciousness, it will affect us. It will increase our material desires and so on. So that's why those of us who take this process more seriously, this process of bhakti, we are very careful what we eat. You know, that we don't only ask, is it vegetarian? No, we ask, who cooked it? Yes, who cooked it? Yes. And then, you know, if it is cooked from, we don't know who, then we may just not be so eager to eat this. You know, so that's why it's good to, for those who are serious, good to avoid these cooked foods by, well, we don't know by whom, you know, what we all buy in the supermarkets, half cooked or fully cooked cookies and even bread and all these things. If we can avoid it, better not to eat these things because it will affect us. Yeah. Actually, let me share one funny little story from Australia. That's where I met Krishna consciousness. I know one family there, and he had a kidney failure. So his wife, the Devaki family, his wife gave one of her kidneys to him. And she was the only one, or she is the only one in the family who likes to eat chocolate. Nobody else in the family is so keen on chocolate, only her. So, and after they had the surgery of transplanting the kidney, when they came home from the hospital, she felt like having some chocolate. So she went to her cupboard and, the chocolate was gone. So she asked her husband, do you know where my chocolate went? And he was saying, well, yeah. So he was a bit embarrassed. Something overcame me and I really felt a craving for chocolate. So I pinched it or I ate it. And then they thought, maybe this is connected with this kidney transplantation. So then next checkup, they told their doctor that story. And he was saying, oh, yes, we know this. Every time we transplant an organ, the person receiving the organ for some time has the same cravings and taste like the person giving it. And then this doctor said, it seems like organs can remember things, which is, of course, nonsense. Organs cannot remember anything. But this doctor didn't know the power of consciousness. So her kidney was flooded with chocolate consciousness. And that emanated in his body. And therefore, he felt like eating chocolate. And that only lasted for about a week or 10 days. So then his new kidney was flooded with his consciousness, which was free of chocolate consciousness. So, and then he lost the taste for chocolate. You know? So, well, this is a medical proof, you know, how consciousness works, how consciousness is in every cell of the body. And of course, in pregnancy, the child completely gets the consciousness of the mother. Good to know these things. So whatever the mother, you know, her feelings, her emotions, her consciousness, the child gets it fully. Yeah, already in the womb. So child raising starts not only after birth, actually in the womb already, and even before then also, because again, our consciousness at the moment of conception, that attracts a certain soul. You know? So if we are in a very prayerful and devotional consciousness and we really pray, we want a nice child who will be a devotee of Krishna, so then that attracts a special soul. So yeah, consciousness, we come across this again and again. And at death, depending what consciousness we are in at that moment, that determines our next destination. So like that, we come across this consciousness in so many different ways. Yes, I have to keep track of the time here, but we still got a few minutes. One amazing thing is also that consciousness travels on sound vibration. I dare say this is really Krishna's special arrangement, that he arranged things in such a way that the voice is very strongly connected with the emotions, right? If we are angry, it comes out through our mouth. We can't hide it. Or when we are afraid, we got a fright, we are nervous, this all comes out through the voice, right? But not only that, also our love and devotion for Krishna. When we sing in kirtan, that travels on the sound vibration and affects everyone who hears it. Yeah, it's almost like a mysterious heart-to-heart transfer of consciousness taking place. So kirtan, when we sing, this is not just some nice music, some musical performance. No, this is a whole transcendental affair. Because really, depending on the consciousness of the person leading the kirtan, that his or her consciousness travels on the sound coming out of the mouth. So if a person is very pure-hearted and doesn't want to make a show of himself or herself, but simply wants to call out to the Lord in a prayerful, devoted mood, then that consciousness comes out of his mouth and it will uplift our heart, it will purify our heart and purify our consciousness. Yeah, that's what happens in kirtan actually. But also, when the consciousness is not so pure, when we rather want to bring attention to ourselves than to the Lord, when we want to show off how great our voice is and how talented we are and all that, so then that kind of false ego consciousness comes out of our mouth. And yeah, that is then not so uplifting. So that's why when we join kirtan, not only the person singing, but even playing the instruments, because again, that's executed through consciousness. So if we want to show off, playing the mridanga, the kartals, then that consciousness travels also on the sound vibration coming from his musical instrument. It's all very subtle, but yeah, that's the way it is. So yeah, when we perform kirtan, we should try and really be in a prayerful and devoted mood. So then it is really an uplifting and spiritual experience. Yeah, very important. And as we mentioned, not only human beings have consciousness, trees actually are quite unique creatures. I remember, first of all, trees are so beneficial, right? What would be the world without trees? Well, here in Arizona, we don't have so many, but we have quite unique creatures here. Yes, But trees give so much benefit. They give shade, they give fruits, and they produce oxygen from carbon dioxide. And also they take negative energy and give off healing energy. Yes. And I remember when I was a teenager, I heard this report in the radio. So when I was a teenager, it's quite a while ago. And in those days, we were listening to the radio. And there was this report about trees and their consciousness. And they demonstrated by transforming the vibration of consciousness into sound vibration. You can do that. Don't ask me how, but it is possible. So they were demonstrating what a tree sounds like, which is peaceful. And it was a buzzing noise. And then they demonstrated what a tree sounds like, which is in anxiety. And it sounded very different. I'm not going to try and imitate it. So, and then they explained why this tree is in anxiety. And they said one man approached that tree who a couple of years before cut off some branches. And that tree was in anxiety. Oh no, not this guy is coming again. Let's see what he's doing this time to me. Yes, and the tree was in anxiety. Yeah. So, yeah, in the modern days of technology, we often lose that perceptiveness towards these subtleties, you know. And actually, Prabhupada was very strong on this, that we should not cut down trees unnecessarily, and also not just cut branches off. Yeah. Anybody's been to Juhu Temple in Mumbai? I'm sure you have been. Maybe you noticed there is this tree outside the temple, which is in such an odd location that you think, what's this tree doing here? You know? It's like when there's a road, one lane, and it's in the middle of one lane is a tree outside the temple. And His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj, he tells a whole story about this tree. That when the devotees got this property of Juhu Temple, Prabhupada instructed them, don't cut off this tree, don't cut it down. That tree has to stay. And then when Prabhupada left Juhu, and then later he came back again, and the devotees met him at the airport, Prabhupada's first question was, is that tree still there? Or did you cut it down? You know? And so that's why this tree is still there today. And Maharaj is saying, just see how caring Prabhupada was with every living entity, even with trees, that he had such compassion and caring mood and really did not want to kill that tree, and what to speak of human beings and his disciples. Yeah, so, you know, it's good to become more conscious that all these living entities around us, yeah, they are also conscious, and they can feel and yeah, experience so many subtleties, and it's our duty to respect them as living entities and yeah, not unnecessarily disturb them or kill them or something. All right, well, time is up. I do want to very quickly, can you give me these books quickly in my hands? I do, if you permit, all of them. Just get them. I want to quickly tell you a few little words about these books I published, because they are all very practical and helpful for our spiritual practice. So I hope that maybe some of you may feel inspired to meet me outside on my book table there. So we have Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. This book is actually all about women. We women have a very powerful Shakti. Actually, in many ways, we are superior to men. We have so many qualities which men don't have. Yes. And we are meant to really use our Shakti to empower the men, actually. That's Krishna's recommendation. So any lady who would like to have harmonious relationships in her life with women, with men, better to check out this book. And any man who wants to get the support and empowerment of a lady should maybe also check out this book. Yeah, very helpful also for married life. Then we have Sheltering Relationships. This is all about the importance of having a mentor, a coach. And just having guru is often not quite enough. We need this well-wishing friend who guides us on a very regular basis and helps us to move forward and corrects us also and helps us. If we don't have that, very easily we stay in our comfort zone and then we become stagnant. And then we may come here for 30 years every Sunday, but nothing much really happens in our life. So also a very important topic. Then we have the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. Actually, today's topic is the first chapter in this book. It starts with consciousness. What is consciousness? And the chocolate consciousness is in there, the kidney with chocolate consciousness, and so many more things. False ego is so subtle, we usually miss it. Like when we get offended, when we can't forgive, this is all the false ego hanging on to the grudges and not letting go. And in this book, there's also a whole chapter on chanting in japa and kirtan, how to chant without false ego, without showing off. Then we have Entering the Grihastha Ashram. This is a handbook for matchmaking. How to see that a man and a woman are compatible for marriage. What to consider, what to look at. There's a whole list of over 200 topics which both should discuss with a cool head, without pink glasses. The pink glasses make everything looks so rosy. That's why I made it pink, by the way. And after 2 years, pink glasses fade away, and then we realize, oh, why did I marry this person? We're not even matching. So it's a good book for people who are not married yet, or for devotees who want to help others to settle in harmonious and compatible marriages. And then we have Family Life as an Ashram, Secrets of Success, how to create the culture of bhakti in our home life. We need a little bit of training in these things. We have to change our lifestyle, our habits, and so many things. And if we create this culture in our home, our children very naturally, they grow into Krishna consciousness. But if the culture is not really lived, then usually when they're 15, 16, they walk out and they don't want to know about Krishna consciousness. And in this book, there's also a whole chapter on physical intimacy in marriage, how to live this principle of no illicit sex life. It is a bit of a confusion and ISKCON, and I did a bit of research and I came across interesting instructions from Prabhupada, where he says things which most of us have not heard. So I hope this book will help us to make our family life more Krishna conscious and yet emotionally balanced and harmonious. And last but not least, the Vanapasta Ashram, meeting death with joy. So Vanapasta Ashram, for those who don't know, that's the phase in life when the family duties, reduce more and more. The kids are out of the house and established in life. So then the parents should move on to the next phase, the retired phase in spiritual life. Or even if there's no kids, or even if we are not married, still, if we are heading towards 50, this is relevant for us, how to spend this last phase in life. And there's a whole chapter on death, what happens there on all the subtle levels, how to prepare, how to support others in this final journey. It's a very important service which we often have to do. Our parents are leaving, senior devotees are leaving, relatives are leaving, friends are leaving. We have to know how to support and how to help people to let go and move on. So if any of you would like to check out these books, the last 4 books are $20 each. The first 2 are $15 each. Many already got the whole set. That's $100, little discount. So you can meet me out there on the book table. Or if you have any questions, if you want to connect personally, I'll be waiting for you out there. Okay, so thank you kindly for your attention. Sorry to go over time for 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Prema.